Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation of the Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Ferguson.
Present.
Directors Gokul and Director Leonard have asked to be excused tonight. Director O'Halloran.
Here.
And Chair Seamson.
Present. And I'm not sure, we're getting a lot of feedback, so if you're listening from home, we are on it. Okay. The Chair will now ask the Secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The Chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so and asks that those who do not wish to participate please remain silent during the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being conducted from the Central Services Building. This meeting is also being broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta de la Mesa Directiva de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799 e introduzca el número de reunión 832-0725-4267, seguido por el símbolo de número. Luego, introduzca el código 883149, seguido por el símbolo de número. Nuevamente, para escuchar esta reunión en español, llame al 312-626-6799 e introduzca el número de reunión 832-0725-4267, seguido por el símbolo de número. Luego, introduzca el código 883149, seguido por el símbolo de número.
Thank you. For each of our items of business, we will hold a discussion and public hearing. If you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker's slip and bring it to our Secretary, Dr. Owen Moore. We have no virtual speakers registered this evening. The committee will accept public comments on tonight's agenda items. Speakers may only address the item for which they have registered. Questions from the public may not be answered during the public comment period. Following public comment, the committee will begin its discussion and no additional comments will be accepted. When you are called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. For the sake of fairness and to give everyone a chance to speak, the Chair reserves the right to limit the length of time allowed to any one speaker. Written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Send this testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53201-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictates that all comments, questions, and requests should be directed to the chair of the committee, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. For the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in such harassing or intimidating words or actions will immediately be asked to cease. If such behavior continues, a recess will be called and the offending parties will be removed from the meeting. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, the individual will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. Also, no one other than members of the board, designated staff, and those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after meetings of the board and its committees. Finally, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the Meetings, Agendas, and Minutes page of the MPS website. Now let's begin. Madam Secretary, item number 1.
Item 1 is action on a recommendation to approve the renewal of the non-instrumentality charter school contract for Next Door Foundation, Inc., for Next Door Charter School. The recommendation is that the board, 1, approve the renewal of a 5-year non-instrumentality charter school contract with Next Door Foundation, Inc., and 2, authorize the superintendent's designee in consultation with the board's designee and the office of the city attorney to enter into negotiations with representatives of Next Door Foundation for Next Door Charter School, and to draft a renewed non-instrumentality charter school contract to begin with the start of the 25-26 school year and end on the last regularly scheduled day of the 29-30 school year.
Thank you. Would administration please present this item?
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. Tonight, I am joined by Bridget Schock, director of contracted schools, to summarize the recommendation before you to renew the non-instrumentality charter school contract for Next Door Foundation. Following this summary, we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you. Ms. Schock.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schock, Director of Contracted School Services. The item before you is a request for a 5-year non-instrumentality charter school renewal with Next Door. Attached to this item, you will find the application for a renewal, along with the letter of intent to renew the charter school contract, the performance summary that includes the academic, financial, and organizational performance over the term of the contract, the current contract, and the recommendation from the charter school review team. In October, the charter school review team conducted a site visit at Next Door. The team carefully reviewed the data in the attachments, spent a full day at the school, which included classroom visits at each location, focus groups with parents, staff, and community partners, and engaged in reading to children. Next Door's mission to support the intellectual, physical, and emotional development of children by partnering with their families for success in school and the community was evident throughout. The review team based its recommendation on a comprehensive educational program for the whole child. Next Door is a well-organized, student-centered, early childhood organization that is invested in the children of Milwaukee. The strong focus on building a love for reading and learning starts at a young age, and Next Door is preparing young children and their families to be school-ready when they reach K-5. They have built a foundation of early learning, social-emotional support, and guided play that invests in the children and families. Further detail of this recommendation is attached to this item. Next Door is a strong organization and has partnered with Milwaukee Public Schools for 20 years. The 2 campuses serve students in K-4. However, they also provide a birth to 4-year-old program for children. Each family receives a family advocate who builds strong relationships and help navigate through the early childhood years. Next Door has developed strong initiatives and partners that provide resources to family aligned to their mission in the heart of our city. At this time, we can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do any members of the public wish to make comments?
We have no speaker slips on this item.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director O'Halloran.
I move approval of administration's recommendation to approve the renewal of a 5-year charter school contract and authorize the superintendent's designee to enter into negotiations for a contract.
Perfect. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
On Director Halloran's motion to approve the renewal of a non-instrumentality charter school contract, 5-year non-instrumentality charter school contract with Next Door Foundation, and to authorize the superintendent's designee in consultation with the board's designee and office of the city attorney to enter into negotiations as presented in the administration's recommendation. Director Ferguson?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Chair Simpson?
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 2 is action on a recommendation to approve the renewal of the instrumentality charter school contract for Honey Creek Continuous Progress Charter School. Honey Creek Continuous Progress Charter School. The recommendation is that the board approve the renewal of a 5-year instrumentality charter school contract with Honey Creek Continuous Progress School and authorize the superintendent's designee in consultation with the board's designee and the office of the city attorney to enter into negotiations with representatives of Honey Creek Continuous Progress School, Inc. for Honey Creek Continuous Progress School and to draft a renewed instrumentality charter school contract to begin with the start of the 2025-26 school year and end on the last regularly scheduled day of the 2029-30 school year.
Would administration please present the item?
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, once again, I am joined by Bridget Schock, Director for Contracted Schools, to summarize the recommendation before you to renew the instrumentality charter school contract for Honey Creek. Following this summary, we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you. Bridget.
Thank you. Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schock, Director of Contracted School Services. The item before you is request to approve the 5-year instrumentality charter school contract for Honey Creek Continuous Progress School. Attached to the item is the application for renewal that includes the letter of intent, the performance summary that includes the academic, financial, and organizational performance over the term of the contract, the current contract, and the recommendation from the charter school review team. In October, the charter school review team conducted a site visit at Honey Creek. The team carefully reviewed the data and the attachments, spent a full day at the school, which included classroom visits and focus groups with students, parents, and community partners. It was evident that Honey Creek's mission to provide equitable, inclusive, engaging, and collaborative learning community which prepares students to develop the knowledge, critical thinking skills, and character necessary to be lifelong learners is embraced by all stakeholders. Honey Creek uses data to strategically develop the learning of their young people. From the classroom to the hallways, we're reading with staff and volunteers. It was evident that there was joy of learning from the staff and students throughout the school. The parents were proud of the growth their students made and how the staff embraced the individualized needs of their children. There is thoughtful consideration on the strategies in place that have the most impact on student outcomes. The full recommendation from the team is attached to this item for further detail. Honey Creek has been an instrumentality charter school for almost 20 years. Throughout that time, they've had a strong impact on students. Some of these students are now either parents, staff, or volunteers at Honey Creek. At this time, we can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much. We are going to go to some public speaker slips. We have 2 people who have requested to speak on this item. Could I have Julie, Jareska? Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly.
Do you want me to do that again?
Yes, please.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I am Julie Jareska, Jereska. I am a Honey Creek parent. All of my children have attended Honey Creek. My oldest has completed his 5th grade year already and is now attending another school. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to consider the extension of our charter. I claim ownership over it apparently because I am also invested in the school and feel proud to be a Honey Creek parent, and my children are proud Honey Creek students. They feel very successful in their school even when they struggle, right? My kids do have struggles like all of our students do, and they feel cared for to the point that sometimes they don't even come home and report those struggles. I find out that they've been so well cared for by the staff there at the school that it's resolved before they come home. In addition to that, I just want to say that besides caring, the nurturing side, they do a fabulous job with elevating student skills. My students are strong students, and they also require that additional challenge at times, right? They require you to go above and beyond as a teacher what is presented to you in the general curriculum book, right? What you have to offer for everyone. My students are going to require a little bit extra, and that need is also cared for at this school. So I appreciate that. It's really a place where they develop a love for learning, a love for literacy, and reading is a core part of that program because we have a different reading curriculum that helps feed into that whole learner, right, and developing a strength of skills for those kids. So thank you for considering this extension.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Laura B. I see all the letters, but they're a little.
There's a lot of them, 11.
Yes.
Chair Simpson and committee members, Laura Biesterveld, Biesterveld. Imagine learning to spell that as a 5-year-old. I am the proud principal of Honey Creek Continuous Progress Charter School. I was very fortunate 18 years ago to end up at Honey Creek School when I thought I wanted a district curriculum. What are those called? Curriculum specialist. No, I can't remember what the title of it was. Anyway, I thought I wanted a district job, but Honey Creek offered me the job first, and that's where I ended up. I do believe that everything happens for a reason, especially in your jobs, right? So, and then I didn't leave. I told them I'd give them 5 years, and then I was going to be gone, but I didn't leave. Honey Creek is I stepped into a wonderful community that I did not know that I was lucky enough to join. My goal is to continue that community. I want all of our students and our families to feel like they belong and that Honey Creek is their school. Being charter gives us the autonomy to choose a different reading curriculum, and that's really important to us. We've been doing the direct instruction reading curriculum since their charter began, and that's really important to us, and that's one of the strong foundations. So I just want to say thank you for considering the motion and considering our petition, and we are thankful and grateful to be a part of MPS and to serve the children of Honey Creek and Milwaukee. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director O'Halloran?
Yes, I move approval of administration's recommendation to renew for a 5-year instrumentality charter school contract with Honey Creek Continuous Progress School and authorize the superintendent's designee in consultation with the board's designee and the office of the city attorney to enter into negotiations with representatives of Honey Creek Continuous Progress School, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the renewal of a 5-year instrumentality charter school contract with Honey Creek Continuous Progress School, Inc., and to authorize the superintendent's designee in consultation with the board's designee and the office of the city attorney to enter into negotiations with representatives of Honey Creek Continuous Progress School, Inc. for Honey Creek Continuous Progress School and to draft a renewed instrumentality charter school contract to begin with the start of the 25-26 school year and end on the last regularly scheduled day of the 29-30 school year. Director O'Halloran? Or Director Ferguson?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Chair Simpson?
Aye.
That's 3 ayes. The motion passes.
Congratulations. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 3 is action on a recommendation to approve the renewal of the non-instrumentality charter school contract for Highland Community School, Inc. for Highland Community School. The recommendation is that the board, 1, approve the renewal of a 5-year non-instrumentality charter school contract with Highland Community School, Inc., and 2, authorize the superintendent's designee in consultation with the board's designee and the office of the city attorney to enter into negotiations with representatives of Highland Community School, Inc. for Highland Community School and to draft a renewed non-instrumentality charter school contract to begin with the start of the 2025-26 school year and end on the last regularly scheduled day of the 2029-30 school year.
Would administration please present the item?
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. I am joined once again by Bridget Schock, director for contracted schools, to summarize the recommendation before you to renew the non-instrumentality charter school contract for Highland Community School. Following this summary, we'll be happy to address any questions you may have. Thank you. Bridget.
Thank you. Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schock, Director of Contracted School Services. The item before you is request for a 5-year non-instrumentality charter school renewal for Honey Creek Community School. Attached to this item, you will find the application for renewal.
We're on to Highland Community School.
I said Highland Community School, didn't I?
Oh, that's
My
okay.
bad.
That is
They're all
okay.
just running together at
That's
this
all right.
point.
It's cold outside.
Let me start over.
Holidays are coming. You're entitled.
A renewal for Highland Community School. Yes. Attached to this item, you will find the application for renewal, the letter of intent to renew the charter school contract, the performance summary that includes the academic, financial, organizational performance over the term of the contract, the current contract, and the recommendation from the charter school review team. In October, the charter school review team conducted a site visit at Highland. The team carefully reviewed the data in the attachments, spent a full day at the school, which included classroom visits, focus groups with students, parents, and staff, and engaged in presentations from students. The mission of Highland to create a community of diverse families and educators working together to offer high-quality Montessori education in a nurturing environment that enriches, empowers, and inspires children to reach their potential and encourage parents to become responsible for and involved with their children's education was evident in every aspect of the school community. Highland is a community of learners that fosters self-confidence, leadership, and respect for self and others. Starting at a young age, students are taught ways to become change agents in their community. The presentation by students included community projects that start in 3rd grade, where students chose a topic that is important within our community. They researched it, and then they took action on it. This leads to the 6th grade project at the United Nations, where one student from Highland was selected to speak at this conference. Then the culminating project in 8th grade is a trip to Costa Rica, where students are immersed in the culture. Highland develops the whole child and instills values with a strong focus on social justice and a high level of parental engagement. Highland has partnered with Milwaukee Public Schools since 1996 and was the first charter school. However, Highland was founded by parents in 1968 and has served families through Montessori education for 56 years. Further information on the recommendation by the team is attached to this item. Highland provides high-quality Montessori education to families in a diverse, student-centered environment. They have been a pillar in this community and a change agent for our city. At this time, we can answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. We are going to move to our speaker slips. We have 3 speakers. Would you please come forward to the podium when I call your name? Andrew Royal.
Hi, thanks for having me here. My name is Andrew Royal. Last name is spelled R-O-Y-A-L. So I'm a parent of 2 students at Highland, both twins, both in K4. So last year they were K3s, and that was their first year as school-aged kids. Also my first time as a parent of school-aged kids, and I'll tell you, the whole thing was pretty overwhelming. Highland is a dynamic and bustling place. It was a lot for all of us to get used to. I took a lot of solace in a piece of guidance offered to me by one of my kids' teachers. She told us that at Highland, the primary job of the K3 student is to observe the life of the classroom, that as K4s they could focus on working on lessons. So I applied this to myself and said, okay, my primary job is to just observe the life of the school. And I had a lot of chances to do this volunteering in the library there every other week for a couple hours. And I'd like to share with you my main observation about Highland. So my main observation is that at Highland, students are working on self-leadership and the practice of freedom. And here's what I noticed in the library. Students would come in, and if they needed my help, researching something or finding a book, they would ask me assertively but respectfully. And if students didn't need my help, if they were, able to just get started with book group or browse for graphic novels, they would just come right in and get to it. I sometimes got the sense there that the students felt like they had more of a right to be in the library than I did. And I love it. I think that's the way it should be. It's for them. I'm just there to help things go. I also observed the students in the hallway outside the library, and watching them reminded me of something from my kids' educational objectives in their Children's House program. One of the things was moves with a purpose. And I watched the kids in the hallway outside the library, and I don't know what they're doing or where they're going, but I can tell you they move with a purpose. It's a real pleasure to me to watch my children learn this when they enter the classroom. I bring them to school and drop them off, and I watch them go in. And what I see is they hesitate when they walk in the classroom. They sort of pause and take in the whole thing. There's not some assigned place they need to get to. There's not some person bringing them to where they're supposed to be. It's their job to think about it and figure it out. So they pause and they look, and then they go. And it's just a great pleasure to me that they're in a school that prioritizes them learning from such an early age about how to decide what they need to do for themselves. So thanks for having me here to speak on behalf of Highland.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Charlene Moore. Oh, yes. Okay. That is all right. Moving on to Jemiah Barnes.
Good evening. My name is Jemiah Barnes, B-A-R-N-E-S. I am an alumni of Highland Community School, and I am a freshman that currently attends Rufus King High School. As I stand here today, I can't help but consider how much I've changed in the 11 years I spent at Highland. Because of Highland, I have developed in many ways I never could have imagined. I have learned more than just math, science, and history. Highland helped me get ready for the next step in my life, high school. Finding out what kind of person I wanted to become is something that I discovered at Highland. By becoming a mentor for some of the other students in my class, I have learned how to lead and always be open and honest with my mentees. Being a student athlete showed me that I could be someone to look up to. Being the only player on the volleyball team with club volleyball experience, I could share my insights with the team on becoming a better player physically and mentally. I formed friendships that have been there for me in the good and the bad. I have gained the ability to collaborate with people from diverse backgrounds and all in all being myself. These abilities have stuck with me and have helped me build new connections in high school. Being unapologetically myself is something that is very, very important to me, and is something I learned during my time at Highland. It may seem like I was a good student, but in the beginning, my academic journey was a battle. Though I eventually got to where I am today, doing great, my grades weren't too good. In 7th grade, I didn't really care to get myself out of the hole I was in because I didn't think I could. I didn't become a better student by only the support I had. I did better by applying the advice and help I received. I could only get there by wanting to be better and opening myself up to a new me. I say all this to say, in high school I feel assured of my readiness thanks to the solid base I built at Highland Community School. I've learned to confront my dilemmas bravely and form important connections. I feel that I am prepared to face the challenges that may come for the rest of my academic and athletic career. Approving Highland for the renewal of their charter would be a great benefit to the other kids, as it's been for me. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your story. Do any members of the committee wish to make comments or ask questions? Director O'Halloran?
I would just like to thank you for sharing your testimony. You make Highland proud. You make us all proud. Well done. And with that, I would like to move approval of administration's recommendation.
All right, and I will just, I know Charlene Moore is not here, but I will say that she does support this item according to the speaker slip that was filled out. So, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
On Director Halloran's motion to approve administration's recommendation, Director Ferguson?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Chair Simpson?
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Congratulations to Highland Community School. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 4 is action on a request to approve the proposal of the Milwaukee Virtual School. The recommendation is that the board approve the educational concept of the Milwaukee Virtual School Instrumentality Charter School, and that authorize the administration and the Office of Board Governance in consultation with the Office of the City Attorney to negotiate a 5-year contract in anticipation of the school opening for the 25-26 school year, with the contract ending on the last regularly scheduled day of the 29-30 school year.
Would administration please present this item?
Sorry. Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. This evening, we are asking your approval on the proposal for Milwaukee Charter School. To share details on this request, I have with me Dr. Jennifer Smith and Will Ludke. Following the sharing of these details, we will be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, Dr. Smith.
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, my name is Jennifer Smith, Regional Superintendent for the high school region. The Milwaukee Virtual Program, or MVP, was developed in the 21-22 school year as an option for families that had concerns with returning to in-person instruction during the ongoing COVID pandemic. Building on the successes of Milwaukee Virtual Program, we are bringing forward the proposal for the creation of a new instrumentality charter school as Milwaukee Virtual School. The Milwaukee Virtual School as a charter school will allow the district to not only attempt to recapture the hundreds of City of Milwaukee children who are attending other virtual schools across the state, but also participate in the state's open enrollment process and attract new families to the district through Milwaukee Virtual School as either full-time or part-time students. Milwaukee Virtual School will be a comprehensive K-12 program designed to meet the needs of all students. Milwaukee Virtual School will recruit students who are traditionally underserved in traditional schools or are in need of virtual learning environment due to safety, physical health, mental health, or family issues. The proposal for the virtual charter school outlines a 3-year growth plan that starts with 1,500 students in K through 12 year 1 and grows to a maximum capacity of 2,500 students. The charter school proposes to continue to use contracted services for curriculum and instruction aligned with the state standards and the course sequence leading to the fulfillment of the MPS graduation requirements. In addition to the online instruction for each course, the contracted services will provide students the opportunity to engage in content tutoring via the online platform. Daily instruction as well as on-demand tutoring will be monitored and reviewed by the full-time Imagine Learning or Edgenuity specialist included in our contracted services. Mentor teachers will be assigned to each grade level to provide students with academic support, social emotional support, and weekly synchronous sessions to review student progress. Students can also schedule sessions with their Edgenuity instructors and the Edgenuity specialists that will routinely offer professional development for guardians, or we call them learning coaches, and their students. Together, the learning coach, the MPS mentor teacher, and Edgenuity instructor create a circle of support around the student. Students enrolled in Milwaukee Virtual School will be expected to participate in all state-mandated testing. Testing will be administered at Milwaukee Virtual School following the MPS scheduled testing windows and will be administered online when that option is available. Needed interventions and academic supports will be prescribed for students based on the screening data to support grade-level proficiency for all. Parents play an integral role in the success of all students, but especially with students in a virtual program where the home is the primary learning environment. Parents will be provided with orientation and training on the technology and platforms used for instruction, assessments, and submitting assignments. Parent orientation will happen at the beginning of each school year with technology supports available on demand. Parents will be provided with the Learning Coach Agreement outlining the key role that the parent plays in at-home learning supports. We've provided the board with a complete copy of the proposal for the Milwaukee Virtual School, and at this time, Mr. Lukey and I are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. Do any members of the public wish to make comments?
We do not have any speaker slips.
Thank you. Committee members, do you wish to make comments or ask questions? Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. I did participate in the presentation the other day, and I wanted to thank you for that presentation. I found it very informative, and I will just relay some feedback that, in particular, Mr. Ludke got very high praise from people on our committee or the body that was considering the request. So the one thing I would say is just if we can do succession planning, making sure that if you are the linchpin to the operations, let's make sure that everything, that we're sharing that knowledge and ensuring that the continued success of the school. So I'm happy to move forward with the recommendation. I would just request that there would be an annual report that comes back to the board, given that this would be new, and also that, there were concerns around changing technology and just trends. I think that this format in particular, is more susceptible to rapid development and growth. And we just, as a board, want to stay informed of, how the program is progressing. And so with that, I'm happy to move forward with administration's recommendation with the caveat that it's built in, that we get a report back to the board at the SASI meeting probably at some point throughout the year.
All right, and administration, does that work for you?
We'll be happy to work with the board to set up a report out on the progress being made.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm sorry, Mr. Chason, I did not see your hand over there.
No, I just raised it now. Thank you, Chair Simpson, Matt Chason, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. One is a check for understanding, and then I want to make sure I understand the approach going forward. The virtual program students who are currently enrolled, they have Obama as currently their school of record. Is that right? And with this this change here, the school will actually have its own accountability rating and scorecard for the state going forward as well. So that will help also produce eyes on the effectiveness and the progress of students in the program. So I think that probably lends itself to more visibility as well. I want to make sure I understood that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for clarifying that important fact. All right, I think we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the administration's recommendation with an added caveat that there be a report once a year through the SASI meeting on the progress of the charter. Director Ferguson?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Chair Simpson?
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 5 is report with possible action on 2023-24 district and school report cards. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would the administration please present this item?
Chair Simpson, members of the committee. Excuse me. Thought I was going to sneeze. Excuse me. I have with me Dr. Natalie Collins, joined by Annie Knopp, to present this information. Following this presentation, we are prepared to answer questions you have pertaining to this item. Thank you. Dr. Collins.
Good evening, Chair Simpson, members of the committee. Dr. Natalie Collins, Director of Research Assessment and Data. I'm joined by my colleague Annie Knopp, Manager of District and School Improvement. Tonight we're here to give you a report on the district and state school report cards. This presentation directly aligns with our priorities of increasing academic achievement and accountability and building stronger communication and collaboration to drive student success. This presentation is also closely connected to our strategic plans focus on student achievement and graduation and how we use professional learning to improve student outcomes. If we take a look at how our district performed, just some background knowledge. Per state statute, the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction publishes annual report cards for all public schools, districts, and private schools participating in choice programs. These report cards serve as a critical tool to evaluate school performance, identify strengths, and address areas for improvement. The report cards help parents, educators, and the public hold schools accountable for student success, and they provide transparent data about school performance, ensuring all Wisconsin students are prepared for their future endeavors. The report card provides the following: an overall score ranging from 0 to 100, a rating of either fails to meets, meets few, meets, exceeds, or significantly exceeds expectations, and a rating with a number of stars ranging from 1 to 5. For the 23-24 state report card, Milwaukee Public Schools earned a score of 58.2, a rating of meets expectations, and 3 out of 5 stars. This is a slight improvement from 58.0, the score that we earned in the 22-23 report card. The overall score is based on a weighted average of the scores from the 4 priority areas you can see here: achievement, growth, target group outcomes, and on track to graduation. Each area is also scored on a scale of 0 to 100. It's important to note that not all priority areas are included in every district's or school's overall score. Some districts or schools may not receive a score in one or more of the priority areas, and this variability is often influenced by the number of students who have participated in state testing over multiple years. Achievement is based on students' performance on state assessments from the past 3 years. This includes last spring's 23-24 state assessments with updated performance level cut scores. DPI applied a scale adjustment to the achievement data of this year's report card to maintain meaningful comparisons across multiple years. The district's achievement score of 27.8 is equal to the score from last year's report card. Growth is based on students' change in performance over time, compared to the growth of similar students across the state. The district showed improvement in the area of growth, earning a score of 67.0, which was an increase from 65.1 on last year's report card. Notably, MPS students demonstrated stronger growth in English language arts compared to the state average. Target group outcomes looks at the specific group of students, and that's those who performed in the bottom 25th percentile based on the prior year's assessment results, as well as any students who scored below proficient on the prior year's dynamic learning maps alternate assessment. It then measures that group's achievement, their growth, chronic absenteeism, and attendance or graduation rates. The district's target group outcome score decreased slightly by 0.6 points from 53.9 to 53.3. The last priority area, on track to graduation, is calculated with scores from chronic absenteeism, graduation, and in K-8 schools, attendance is used in place of graduation, third grade language arts, and 8th grade mathematics performance. The district's on-track graduation score declined 1.9 points from 55.3 to 53.4. Through our analysis, we believe this is due to a decrease in the district's chronic absenteeism score from the prior report card. Chronic absenteeism calculations include lagging data from 3 school years, and in the 2019-20 school year, the chronic absenteeism rate was considerably lower with a score of 13.1%, but that year's data is no longer being used in the calculation for this report card. That data has been replaced from 22-23 with a higher chronic absenteeism rate of 19.8% and has possibly caused the decline in the score. I'll now turn it over to Annie Knopp.
Good evening. So, how did our schools perform? The historical ratings for Milwaukee Public Schools show consistent patterns across most years, with 2020-21 standing out as a notable exception. This year was unique for several reasons. It marked the introduction of a new report card format. The COVID-19 pandemic disrupted normal testing, leading to lower test participation rates as schools alternated between in-person and virtual instruction. And as a result, more schools fell below the minimum threshold of 20 full academic or FAY students needed for report card calculations to occur. Setting aside the 2020-21 school year, the distribution of school performance has remained relatively stable over time. Milwaukee Public Schools on this year's state report card can be summarized, the performance can be summarized as follows. 66 schools earned ratings of meets, exceeds, or significantly exceeds expectations. 43 schools met few expectations. 35 schools failed to meet expectations. And compared to last year's ratings, 16 schools improved in their overall rating, 28 schools declined, and 66 schools maintained their rating from the previous year. Some highlights to note are that 66 of our schools saw improvements in their achievement priority area score, with increases ranging from 0.1 to 7.2 points. Of these schools, 19 are currently designated as CSI, or schools in need of comprehensive supports and improvement. We also recognize that Whittier had a score of 89, and Reagan High School had a score of 84.9, earning the highest overall scores in our district for the second consecutive year in a row. How did our schools receiving an alternate report card perform? The Department of Public Instruction has developed an alternate accountability report card for schools that do not have the data required to calculate a school report card score. An alternate accountability rating can be assigned to schools with fewer than 20 academic full-year students in tested grades, schools without tested grades, and new schools. The number of schools receiving an alternative accountability report card has been declining, with the 2020-21 school year standing out as a notable exception, where more schools received an alternate accountability report card than the prior year because of school closures with the pandemic occurring. Since the pandemic, more schools are now meeting the threshold of having 20 full academic year students participating in testing and receiving a traditional report card. 8 schools in MPS received an alternate accountability report card, with 5 schools receiving a rating of satisfactory and 3 receiving a rating of needs improvement. Alternate accountability ratings for high schools are based on the number of credits earned in ELA and math courses compared to the number of credits attempted and graduation rates. Alternate accountability ratings for K-8 schools are based on the percentage of students scoring proficient or advanced in ELA and math classes, as well as attendance rates. So how do priority areas impact our scores? Priority area weights are determined by the percentage of students identified as economically disadvantaged within a district or school. The weighting methodology contains several important nuances. 1, report card calculations give more weight to the most recent school year's data. 2, priority weights are not uniform and can vary significantly between districts and individual schools. And 3, some schools may not receive a score in one or more priority areas. This variability is often influenced by the number of students who have participated in state testing over multiple years. In our specific district report card, we received a score in each priority area. However, this comprehensive scoring is not consistent across all schools within the district. When examining individual school report cards, it is critical to note the number of priority areas included in the overall calculations. This understanding provides important context for interpreting the report card results and comparing performance across different schools. As shown, Milwaukee Public Schools had 3 schools whose report cards were based on 2 priority areas. In these cases, 80% of the school's overall report card scores were based on achievement, with 20% being based on track to graduation priority area. Compared to last year, MPS has reduced the number of schools without a target group priority area score on their report card. Last year, we had 47 schools that did not have this. This year, we only have 11. As part of our ongoing commitment to transparency, I want to outline the next steps for sharing our district state accountability report cards with the public. By January 31st, each year, the school district must publish a Class 1 notice as required by state law. This notice will include the performance category ratings for each school in our district, making the most recent report card data accessible to the public. A description of educational options available within the district will also be provided so that families are aware of the choices for their children. All school and district report cards will be posted on the district website. Each school will have its website updated with its school improvement plan or SIP at a glance, its current report card, as well as information on educational options available in the district. These steps ensure we meet state requirements and promote transparency within our community. By sharing this data, we empower families to make informed decisions and engage more fully in their children's education. We continue to support district and school staff in understanding the school report card and how increased achievement influences the various priority areas. Our schools recognize that improved academic performance is not just critical for enhancing state report card ratings, but also essential for preparing students to succeed in higher education, future career opportunities, and civic engagement. To that end, all of our school improvement plans are centered on enhancing academic achievement in ELA and mathematics, as well as improving graduation rates, which aligns to the district's strategic plan. Schools are not only working to review student academic progress through ongoing assessments, but they're also providing support to teachers and staff in implementing evidence-based improvement practices. The expansion of the district leadership teams allows for continued collaboration and alignment between the Office of Academics, the Office of Administration, the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction's Continuous Improvement Team, and CISA 1's Urban School Transformation, as we all work to support improvement across the district. Lastly, DPI has introduced a new target group dashboard this year, providing schools with detailed data about which students who may impact the target group scores. This powerful tool enables schools to identify students early and implement targeted supports and strategies, benefiting both the specific target group of students as well as all students. And that concludes our report.
Thank you so much. Do any members of the public wish to make comments?
We have no speaker slips on this item.
Do committee members wish to make comments or ask some questions? Director Ferguson?
Thank you, Chair Simpson. My question is, when we roll out, walking through these reports with the community, how do we leverage the students? Do we ever share this type of data with them and get any feedback from them?
Administration.
Chair Simpson, Director Ferguson. Part of our processes at each school vary a little bit, but for example, when I was the principal at VIEW, these scores were always shared with students in either individual conferences or during parent-teacher conferences. The difficulty becomes when the tests are released is usually after the first set of conferences and before the second, and it's always just a snapshot in time, right? So we do present this to information to families and students. It varies on how that's done at schools. I think a more, not useful, but a more timely kind of sharing is done around STAR and different tests that are given 3 times a year during the school year because we get immediate feedback on that.
Follow-up, Director Ferguson?
No.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, seeing no other members wishing to make comments on this item, thank you very much for that presentation. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 6 is report with possible action on the regional showcase, high school region. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would administration please present this item?
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Interim Superintendent Eduardo Galvan. This evening, we are excited to introduce to you our monthly regional showcase featuring the high school region this month. I have with me Dr. Jennifer Smith, Regional Superintendent for the high school region, joined by Irene Borenstein, Jen Hilgendorf, and Robin Schultz to highlight the goals and strategies of the GRIP program. Afterwards, the team will be more than happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this item. Thank you. Dr. Smith?
Good evening, Chair Simpson, members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Smith, Regional Superintendent for the high school region, and I'm excited this evening to share with you the work that is going on in the high schools. I'm supported in the high school region by our Instructional Leadership Director, Mr. Greg Ogumbawali, and we also have an extended regional team that works alongside our talented leaders to keep us focused on the work and the goals of our high school. The leaders of the high school region and our regional team are committed to the implementation of the 5 priorities for success. Our work encompasses all of these areas daily with a focus on increased academic achievement front and center in our responsibility to support every student in graduating on time, prepared for a successful future in the college or career of their choice. sorry. As you can see on this slide, the options available to students within the high school region are vast and varied. We have schools as small as 140 and as large as 1,400. We have K-3 Montessori, but we also serve students returning as adult learners at our alternative sites. Specialty programs are abundant in the high school region, and these programs provide an identity and a focus to our schools across the region. The high school region has served over 20,000 students year-to-date with a current enrollment at 19,800. We have 30 schools and programs that serve our students on their pathway to graduation. The diversity of our schools matches the diversity of our student body, and we believe that we have the right option for every student looking to graduate from Milwaukee Public Schools. On this slide, you will see our year-to-date data related to attendance and suspension rates. This is very encouraging to us and a reflection of the hard work of our staff and leaders to create a sense of belonging at each school. One important note as we look at the data is the new calendar for the high schools. The high schools have been on the early start calendar for many years, and the switch back to the traditional calendar showed us early gains in attendance. Historically, our August attendance was lower, and so we are off to a good start and looking to maintain the gains in attendance for this year. Suspensions are also down compared to this time last year. Again, not apples to apples because of the change in the calendar, but we are encouraged as we dive deeper into the discipline data that we will see in just the next couple of slides. But I would also like to point out, related to attendance on the staff side, that our staff attendance for the first 3 months of this school year is 96%, and we have 199 high school region teachers that have perfect attendance this year. Makes our job very, very much easier in the high schools. Looking at incident referrals this year, we are approximately 400 fewer referrals for the first 3 months of the year. Keeping this trend of lower referral rates will ensure that our suspension rates remain lower. And specifically, looking at repeated classroom behaviors, we are very encouraged to see the number of repeat offenders in the classrooms is low. This is looking at just referrals from classroom-based behaviors. These numbers represent the entire region, and to see only 65 students with 16 referrals in the first 3 months means that at each school we have just 2 or 3 students that we need to focus on behavior interventions. Our school staff works hard to ensure that discipline is effective in changing behaviors, and these behaviors are not repeated. With the decreasing referral rates and the decreasing repeated behaviors, we consider this as a win as we tackle the challenging behaviors of our schools. Switching to academic achievement in the high school region, on this slide, we have a summary of the state report cards that you just heard about in detail. We have 3 schools which exceed expectations and 1, Ronald Reagan High School, which significantly exceeds expectations again for the 23-24 report card. Next to each school, you'll see a plus or a minus or an equal, indicating if that school has increased their score over last year's score or decreased. Also, there's an asterisk next to the Milwaukee School of Languages because their gains on this year's state report card moved them up to the category of meets expectations. We applaud their efforts and their commitment to continuous improvement. We're continuing to support our schools that fail to meet expectations with assistance from our regional team. The CSIP plans at all of the schools, but especially at those failing to meet expectations, outline the strategies for improvement as well as the measures for success and moving these schools towards the meets and exceeds expectations. I'd now like to transition us to spotlight a critical strategy in our school improvement happening at 10 of our high schools. This is the Graduation Rate Improvement Plan, or GRIP. GRIP supports on-time graduation of our high school students in a valuable partnership with DPI and the Transition Improvement Grant, or TIG. I'll turn it over now to our partners in this work to share about their roles, the work that they are supporting in our schools, and the outcomes that we have seen with GRIP.
Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Hilgendorf, and I'm the Statewide Implementation and Improvement Project Coordinator for the Wisconsin Transition Improvement Grant, or TIG. TIG is an investment from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction to provide school districts technical assistance and coaching around school continuous improvement practices that will improve graduation rates and post-school outcomes and engagement in education and employment for students with IEPs. TIG has been very fortunate to be able to develop a partnership with Milwaukee Public Schools staff to support high schools within the high school region. And this partnership has allowed our staff to provide training and coaching opportunities for high school staff and be able to identify, select, and install evidence-based intervention strategies that we know will improve graduation rates for students with IEPs. The reintroduction of this partnership began in the spring of 2023, where TIG and DPI leadership had the opportunity to meet with district leadership, both in specialized services and the high school region, to review data together and develop a plan to collaboratively serve schools within the high school region and be able to work on strengthening continuous improvement planning. During our data review, the team discovered a discrepancy in graduation outcomes for males who are Black with a primary disability label of either emotional behavioral disability or EBD or other health impairment, OHI. The team agreed the goal would be to set this collaborative support to focus on impacting four-year graduation rate for students with IEPs, however, more specifically, males who are Black and have the primary disability of EBD or OHI. To reduce the burden of our schools, the team also discussed the importance of aligning this work to the continuous improvement efforts that already exist within the district, and also meet the requirements of other improvement requirements that the district has, which are the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, as well as the Individuals with Disabilities Act, IDEA, and more specifically, the corrective action plan that MPS has with DPI to improve outcomes for students with IEPs.
Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. My name is Irene Bornstein. I am one of the two Specialized Services Regional Managers for the high school region. The GRIP team always consists of a school-based administrator, special education supervisor, a general education teacher, special education teacher, school counselor, and transition coordinator. Including a general education teacher has promoted inclusivity. Many times social workers and/or psychologists are added as well. They have become an integral part of the team. Every month, the full team meets for an hour to review student data and discuss next steps. The leadership team, which consists of the special education supervisor, building administrator, and TIG specialist, meet for an hour each month to discuss trends and streamline future team meetings. 3 times a year, the full team meets for 2 hours to evaluate the effectiveness of the intervention and to identify next steps to move forward. The cohorts at each school were determined by doing a root cause analysis. These cohorts can be fluid, though, due to student transfers, graduation, etc. For example, if a student moves from a school, North Division to Vincent, both those schools have the same pillars, so the students may be transferred to those GRIP plans as well.
Hello again, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. My name is Jen Hilgendorf. As previously mentioned by Irene, the root cause analysis that was conducted by each of the teams led into a selection of which evidence-based strategy would have the greatest impact on the identified root cause. TIG has a continuous improvement planning tool called the Graduation Rate Improvement Plan, and there are 3 pillars of evidence-based improvement strategies that teams can select to implement. The evidence-based strategies that teams select come from the 3 graduation improvement pillars. These pillars include transition planning, mentoring, and career and technical education. There is a large body of research that aligns to these strategies to improve graduation rates, and these strategies are pulled from our national partners and the research that they conduct. These national partners include the National Dropout Prevention Center, the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition, the Collaborative, the IES What Works Clearinghouse, or more specifically, research that was conducted around graduation improvement, the National Mentoring Partnership, and the Association for Career and Technical Education. These bodies of research provide guidance for our tool and teams as they are developing clearly identified action plans to install their identified strategy to support students with IEPs.
Good evening, Chair Seamson and members of the committee. My name is Robin Scholes, and I'm one of 3 implementation specialists for TIG who supports 5 of the schools on this slide. Among our 10 GRIP schools, all 3 graduation improvement pillars are represented after each GRIP team conducted a data analysis to identify the specific needs of the student cohorts. Here, 5 schools have selected the mentoring pillar. Yet each school's mentoring strategy may have been different depending on student needs and resources already available at schools. For example, at South Division and Pulaski, check-in, check-out already existed in schools, but may not have been provided to the students on the GRIP cohorts. The Transition Improvement Grant Implementation Specialist helped these schools identify adult practices to ensure that these already existing strategies were being implemented with fidelity. In addition to looking within each school for existing resources, some GRIP teams felt the need to look outward at some of the strategies TIG highlighted from national research. For example, South Division felt very passionately about creating peer mentorship opportunities, and thus Link Crew was established. Here, all 9th grade students with IEPs will have the opportunity to be a part of Link Crew in an effort to instill a sense of belonging at the school. And as an additional level of support, peer mentors will connect with these students one-on-one and in small group settings to build positive relationships with upperclassmen. Lastly, for 2 of our schools adopting the CTE pillar due to their robust CTE programs, both Marshall and North Division teachers and staff participated in professional development on universal design for learning, with the goal of providing CTE teachers and in fact all teachers, with skills and strategies to utilize in their classrooms to meet the needs of every student. Here, the decision to focus on UDL for these students stemmed directly from the instructional root causes identified in their CSIPs. The Transition Improvement Grant prioritizes alignment with schools' existing areas of need, and I'm particularly drawn to South Division's motto of shoulder to shoulder. TIG really does stand shoulder to shoulder with these GRIP teams to help create positive student outcomes for the cohorts. So let's take a look at some of the positive student outcomes that stem from our GRIP work last year. Among the 10 comprehensive high schools with GRIP teams, 221 students were impacted by adopting evidence-based strategies. With the utilization of these strategies, and in comparison to the 22-23 school year, 48% of the students showed an increase in attendance. 72% had decreased suspensions. 93% of the students earned credits last year, with 56% of those students earning 4 or more credits. And we are just getting started. In June, the GRIP teams reflected on how to continue to build the capacity of adults and sustainability for years to come. In August, the GRIP teams met again to re-examine their cohorts, add additional students in need of intervention, and highlight the adult practices we'd like to see at each school for even more positive student outcomes to occur by the end of this year. GRIP team members across many of these schools have shared with me that this work is fun, it's meaningful, and it will lead to positive outcomes for students and staff. We would now like to share with you a video from one of our GRIP school leaders, Mr. Aaron Shapiro from Bradley Tech.
Good evening, School Board of Directors. Aaron Shapiro, Principal of Bradley Technology and Trade School. I was invited to just speak a little bit about the GRIP, or the Graduation Rate Improvement Plan. This is the 2nd year at Tech that we've been participating in this program. We are focused on 11th grade students and really taking a track around building relationships through mentoring, specifically utilizing a program called Check and Connect. It's been absolutely wonderful, the results we're seeing just after this short 2-year time span. And I believe that there's 3 factors that have really played a firm role in the growth that we have seen through this program. The first one is truly bringing together a diverse stakeholder group, looking at this challenge of disproportionality of graduation rates between our special education students and non-special education students. You know, included at the table is representation from central services, the district office, from DPI, as well as locally, we have teachers, guidance counselors, as well as our special education supervisor, all part of these monthly meetings. I think utilizing that diverse group of stakeholders have really brought out a lot of unique ideas and really allowing people to have voice where in other spaces they may not be heard. Having some additional resources come from the outside has certainly helped. The fact that we chose the Check and Connect program here at Tech was specifically because of recommendations of what outside members had seen in other school buildings. I think another big factor in regards to the success of the program is just around the protocol itself that we utilize. The protocol is extremely efficient, and we are continually focusing on that student level data, seeing areas where we might have to make adjustments for improvement as well as celebrating successes. Completely data driven throughout the entire process, as well as focused around what the adult behaviors are. You know, we're not just looking at the back end to see how the student is particularly performing in the classroom, you know, but what are the adult actions that may be driving that performance for that individual student. And I think that the last biggest factor is really the focus truly around that student level piece. In the meeting, we're not just looking at raw numbers, but rather looking at very specific students and talking about how their course performance is in both math and English and what potential supports that student may need. We also discuss attendance as one of the major factors, and really have been able to discuss what are those factors maybe outside of the school building that would be impacting that student's performance. With that being said, truly excited about the data we've seen. Last year, at the end of the year, we did see a rise in our passing rates. And this year, we would anticipate the same, and really focusing on this group of 11th grade students to ensure that on-time graduation at the end of next school year.
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Jennifer Smith, Regional Superintendent for the High School Region. Although we have presented highlights of the successes of the high school region, we acknowledge that there are areas of continued improvement and growth needed to reach our goals of graduating every student prepared for the college and career of their choice. First, we are looking to influence the structures of our CSIP work to incorporate and expand on the work of our GRIP and to include more schools. We have already seen specific schools that are scaling up the GRIP work, but we don't want to have two improvement strategies in competition, but rather would like to help our schools align their work and focus on the research-based strategies that will support their students. As a region, we are focusing on 9th grade achievement and how we can get our students off to a solid start with achievement goals as well as positive behaviors. We know that our data tells us that 9th grade is the place where our students often struggle, and if we can help them to make the transition to high school better, we can change graduation outcomes. We continue to use Freshman Bridge as our primary tool for orientation, but are looking at other efforts, such as Link Crew mentioned here tonight, to support that work. Both of these programs, as well as our district work on creating a sense of belonging in schools, point to the connection between culture and climate efforts and academic achievement. From the GRIP work, we can see a need to create true PLC structures in schools that bring diverse voices to the table to tackle other issues in our school and to collaborate on strategies to address the issues. Finally, we see the benefit of the partnership in TIG and DPI and are looking to expand the coaching opportunities for our leaders and our teachers with other partners. We have specific coaching work already underway this year with the math implementation and our CTE-focused schools at our MRI, or more rigorous intervention schools. This work is challenging, but we have the staff and the leaders in place to embrace the challenge. Thank you for your attention and the interest in our high school region today, and we are able to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for the report, and thank you to the guests who came to speak to this really interesting approach to our high schools and kind of helping our students do better and feel more connected. Are there any members of the public who wish to make comments?
We have no speaker slips.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? No. All right. Well, thank you again, and I look forward to hearing more about the program. It really seems like a great one for our district. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 7 is report with possible action on MPS Equity Guidebook. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Thank you. We just have a little bit of a changing of people coming and going right now. Would administration please present this item?
Chair Simpson and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. In August, the administration presented a draft equity guidebook for the board's review, gathered feedback, and made edits to produce a finalized version. Tonight, I am joined by representatives of a team that led the work in completing the guidebook. These representatives, are Ebony Lewis, Dr. Hassani, Dr. Ellis, and Leon Gross. Following the sharing of this information, we are prepared to answer any questions you may have. At this time, I will turn over to the representatives to lead us in presenting of the guidebook. Thank you. Dr. Ellis.
Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. Patricia Ellis, Director of the Department of Equity, Access, and Inclusion. I am joined this evening by Mr. Leon Gross, Dr. Kurosh Hassani, and Ms. Ebony Lewis. Our presentation will focus on the diversity and wealth of resources in the Equity Guidebook to engage the heads, hearts, and interactions of staff and students toward more equitable practices. The guidebook includes resources that support the strategic plan and district's mission. As the strategic plan is a living document, the Equity Guidebook is also a living document that is reviewed and updated to reflect evolving local, national, or international events that impact the lives of our staff, students, and families. Updates will be made quarterly in alignment with the strategic plan. The guidebook is also aligned to the district's 5 priorities for success. This evening, we will focus on resources that support the 3 areas indicated. Staff, students, families, and other community stakeholders were invited to attend community sessions that were held here at Central Services on September 11th and September 18th to review, ask questions, and provide feedback about the draft Equity Guidebook that was presented to the SASI committee in August. This invitation was shared on the district website, in Thursday updates, community newspapers, and through other media outlets with the guidance and assistance of the Department of Communications and Marketing. In-person attendees were able to review and provide feedback using a Chromebook or hard copy of the guidebook. In-person attendees were also able to participate in engaging and thought-provoking activities utilizing resources in the guidebook. For those unable to attend in person, a copy of the draft guidebook was made available online for them to provide feedback until September 20th. In addition, some individuals engaged in one-on-one conversations to participate in this process. We thank all who engaged in updating the guidebook. The guidebook's resources further enrich and enhance the implementation of Administrative Policy and Procedure 1.06. Based on stakeholders' feedback that has been incorporated into the guidebook has been reformatted to be more user-friendly. Additional feedback was to make the guidebook available online and in a downloadable format to further support ease of access and use. For the purpose of this evening, we will focus on Part 2 of the guidebook, which highlights resources aligned to the equity goals. The first 4 sections in Part 2 are aligned to the first 4 equity goals and primarily provides informational resources. Section 5, representing the 5th equity goal, provides a variety of activities, literature suggestions, and informational text suggestions that build background knowledge, support intrapersonal and interpersonal learning, foster reflection, and engage staff and students in hands-on, minds-on learning for professional or personal growth. We will now proceed into how resources in the guidebook may be used to strengthen and sustain diverse practices that are at the heart and root of equity. It is now my pleasure to introduce my esteemed colleague, Mr. Leon Gross.
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Leon Gross, Director of the Department of Restorative Practices. Thank you for the opportunity to share how the Department of Restorative Practices is represented in the Equity Guidebook and ways that stakeholders can use our resources to support creating communities of care. We know that when being restorative, we honor cultures and identities to ensure that all voices are heard and foster connections. Specifically, when visiting the Restorative Practices section of the Equity Guidebook, users will immediately see the goal association being equity in academics. From there, users will see our department's alignment to the goal itself, being to create school communities that are inclusive to support the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being of its members using balance in the process. Users will then see the objective and purpose of our department being to provide an immersive experience that emphasizes the importance of building, maintaining, and repairing relationships within the community. Users will then be able to make connections to how the resource guide can be used to engage in experiential learning. And again, stakeholders in this particular piece will be able to celebrate diversity, honor different perspectives, and embrace individual and collective accountability. I want to underscore that restorative practices is more than just a philosophy. It is an individual invitation for personal relationships to take place with its practices. During the community conversations event that took place, attendees participated in a restorative practice community building activity using balance in the process, with this topic being celebrating who I am. And when we speak of balance in the process, this is a restorative approach that invites members, including their background and experiences, into the community space to be recognized through several tiers. The first is getting acquainted with one another, which is an invitation to acknowledge individuals in the space. This is followed by building relationships where values, core values, experiences are typically shared through a storytelling process. This is critical because it is the validation process of inclusion of those individuals within that particular community. Then you move to handling issues. And what happens here is that whatever is at the focus, the attention of the community then uses those collective values that have been talked about, and they begin to create action plans and ownership that support what's the impact of the work that needs to be done in order to validate, again, every person in the community and the task at hand. And then the final piece is developing a plan where members of the community make commitment and have an accountability to foreseeing their part in the development and the implementation of that plan. And so when we speak of balance in the process, that is a format that we typically use, an approach that we use regardless of the topic that's at hand. It could be a curricular approach, it could be a community building approach, but it's that invitational piece that is critical to the restorative practices. When a user goes to our website, a user will explore the departmental background, purpose, and plans to engage the district in creating communities of care, as I mentioned prior. There were a few community building activities that are included within our website that anyone can participate in. And again, I want to underscore that our department does provide support to anyone who requests by offering consultation, professional development opportunities throughout the school year, and direct coaching with a restorative practice practitioner working within a school. In closing, I want to reiterate that restorative practices framework naturally creates cultures where everyone is accountable and supported in striving to be their authentic selves socially, emotionally, and academically. I am honored to share this work with my colleague, Ebony Lewis, who is to my left, who will now enlighten us on how her department is represented within the Equity Guidebook.
Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. My name is Ebony Lewis, and I am the Director of the Gender and Identity Inclusion Department here with the Milwaukee Public School District. For anybody that doesn't know, the Gender and Identity Inclusion Department focuses on creating environments within our school district that support the success and overall well-being of girls of color and LGBTQ+ students throughout the district. And so with that, I will be highlighting Goal 2, which is cultural and linguistic awareness and responsiveness, and really looking at how our departments and the resources that can be found in the Equity Guidebook, as well as our website as well, can be utilized in that support. And so the alignment is to prioritize equity and academic achievement by supporting girls of color and LGBTQ+ students, staff, and families with principles highlighted in the Equity Guidebook. This is done to create safe, affirming, and representative environments using tools such as our gender inclusion guidance, the Girls of Color Guide, which is a brand new creation, and our safe space posters, which can be ordered by anyone in the district and displayed and utilized just to, one, affirm that the space is safe, but then also give anybody in the district access to our resources, as it does have a QR code. And then lastly, the application is just to provide professional development on these strategies and resources to support inclusive curriculum design, review school spaces, and evaluate progress to sustain belonging and enhance district practices. And so we are doing a lot of this work every single day throughout both of our programs, but really ensuring that there's a central space where parents can go, where families can go, where staff can go to utilize these resources in their classrooms, to really look at the education and awareness. We don't just want to have safe space posters. We want to ensure that places are actually safe for our children. So we have a huge emphasis on professional development, lots of different offerings that we offer both from our Girls of Color program as well as our LGBTQ+ programming. We also want to ensure inclusive curriculum design. As I mentioned, we have our gender inclusion guidance, which was created in 2017, edited in 2022. That is a 30-page document to support non-binary and transgender students in the district. And so it has information, it has forms, it has everything that a staff, a parent, or anyone may need, once again, accessible through the Equity Guidebook as well as our website. We really want to, as I mentioned, review spaces, and so we've been diving into that work of walkthroughs and just ensuring that spaces are safe. And then if they're not, really seeing how we can hands-on support principals, leaders in the schools to create those safe spaces. And then lastly, just progress evaluation, really focusing on outcomes, especially this year. We're 3 years in as a department here, and so really looking at the outcomes, the data, and how students within our programs utilizing these resources are impacted. Of course, this work is more than just policy. For us, it is every single day going into spaces and intentionally doing the work. And so I'm just thankful to have the Equity Guidebook and to have these resources that we were able to curate to really be able to be that guide and support for our staff, students, and families. And with that, I am honored to pass it on to my colleague, Dr. Hassani.
Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. Dr. Kurosh Hassani, Teacher Leader, English Learners and Family Engagement, Department of Bilingual and Multicultural Education. As an immigrant to the United States, I understand the challenges of learning a new language and adapting to a different culture. When I first arrived, I felt uncomfortable sharing my name because people often struggle to pronounce it correctly. This experience is not uncommon, especially among refugee students who upon their arrival may be given English-friendly names such as June, July, August to ease communication. However, we know that a person's name and language are central to their identity and sense of belonging. As an ESL teacher leader, I've learned that the most effective approach to learning English and adapting to a new culture is to preserve one's roots, including one's native language. In Milwaukee Public Schools, we are proud to represent more than 90 languages spoken by our students. This linguistic diversity enriches the culture and climate of our district. On page 27 of the Equity Guidebook, you can find a list of languages spoken by MPS students. While language programs in MPS aim to develop English, we also recognize the importance of honoring native languages and cultures. On page 27 of the guidebook, you will find resources for language development, as well as links to organizations and sites that promote cultural awareness and support. It's important to note that not all newcomer families speak English, as they are new to the country. To ensure that language barriers do not hinder communication with parents, the district provides access to interpretation services through Language Line. This resource connects teachers and staff with live interpreters in various languages. Access to Language Line is available exclusively to district staff and can be found through mConnect on page 29 of the guidebook. New students from around the world continue to enroll in MPS, and the Lao Compliance Center plays a key role in their integration. Located in the Central Services Building, the Lao Center administers language assessment to determine students' English proficiency levels. Based on these results, students are enrolled to a school with either a bilingual or ESL program and are provided with a backpack of school supplies. More information on Lao Center can be found on page 25. The MPS Quick Reference Guide provides valuable information about the countries our students are coming from and offers suggestions for how educators can prepare to welcome these students into their classrooms. These 1 to 2 page guides encourage educators to learn about their students' backgrounds and familiarize themselves with a few words in their students' native languages. This resource is available on page 37 of the guidebook. Professional learning opportunities highlighting the diverse Equity Guidebook resources will begin or continue in January 2025 for staff, students, parents, guardians, and community stakeholders. We thank you for taking the time to learn about the work that has gone into updating this guidebook. We hope this resource will support teachers, staff, and students in this important work. And finally, I say thank you in 5 languages. Merci, merci, French and Farsi, shukran, Arabic, asante, Swahili, toda, Hebrew, arigato, Japanese. This concludes our presentation. We will be happy to address any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you so much for sharing that, that report. And just that message of inclusion, I think with some of the rhetoric that's out there right now, it's more important now than ever before that our students feel embraced and welcomed when they come to school. So thank you so much. Do any members of the public wish to make comments?
We have no speaker slips.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask some questions? Director O'Halloran.
I just have a comment and then I have a question, and I wanted to echo your sentiments. Just hearing the work that's being done, sometimes we can let perfection be the enemy of like really great progress. And so I want to thank you for the improvements, and thank you for this really important work, especially as we pivot maybe more to where we have to play the defensive, because these are not just values that we share on stage. Like, these are what could be coming in January of 2025 could have very real ramifications for our students and their families. When we're talking about environments that are not just putting up a safe space poster, but making them truly safe. You know, recently there was a study that showed more trans teens attempted suicide after states passed anti-trans laws. Like, legislators are using children as talking points and creating division, and those are children, and it's our job to protect them. So I want to thank you for that work. And hearing, I mean, I have friends who are first generation, born here, who are joking. Some of them are joking, like, oh, I guess I'm being deported now. Like, we're going to maybe have to take a more defensive role of our students. And so I think that this work is even more important potentially in this upcoming year. So thank you so much for all of that. My question, I hear us talking about supporting new, refugees and new arrivals for our students and families. Do we talk about how we're supporting new arrivals for teaching staff? Because we have a lot of international teachers as well. And so maybe English language acquisition isn't the challenge there, but just how we're culturally honoring where they're coming from and then adequately supporting them to be successful. Is that work included kind of under the equity umbrella?
Administration.
Director Simpson, members of the committee, Director O'Halloran. So all of our international teachers, if I'm understanding you correctly, are trained before they enter a classroom. So they arrive, they go through work. In fact, Mr. Harris and I were just welcoming them over at Garapi High School, where they all meet together.
Okay.
And they're given, instruction on things about basic life, right? I mean, how do we open an account here? How do we get a driver's license here? How do you find a place to live here? Those are all basic necessities which we help them get through. Then they spend a large amount of time with our induction, our team, Dr. Tolbert, Ms. Maroney, and that staff to give them instruction on our culture, right? Honoring theirs and then pointing out how we maybe do things a little bit differently here, right? Those of us who have traveled to other countries and seen the educational system, sometimes we need to make them aware that what was honored in their country isn't that it's not honored here, but it's done differently here, right? Expectations and our view sometimes, when I say our view here, is a little bit different than it may be in terms of the value and the respect that, I hate to say it, but that is given to education in other countries sometimes isn't that here. So we want them to be prepared for that, our students may not be the same students that they may be used to, where, they may be used to a student saying, yes, sir, no, ma'am, those kinds of things. And so we just want to prepare them for that. And they have opportunities to meet with those international teachers that are in year 2 or 3 as well, and they continue to have different activities at the beginning of the year, throughout the year. There was just an event held at, was it South Division? Where we called it was kind of a Thanksgiving for our international teachers who don't have that in their country, right? And it was a wonderful opportunity for them to come and get together and feel that they're learning about our culture, because that's part of it as well, right? Making them feel included in learning some of our customs and yet honoring theirs. So there are many opportunities for that to happen.
Follow-up, Director O'Halloran?
No, I sometimes we're like, diversity is our strength, and we talk about there's 90 languages that our students speak, and it's just, honoring that a lot of our teachers are coming with, they're a real asset to MPS as well, bringing their cultural identity, and I just want to make sure that we honor that as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Ferguson?
Thank you, Chair Simpson.
It
Is it?
Oh, his.
Oh, yeah, I'm green. There we go. Okay. I want to say that I definitely appreciate this, the work that you guys do. I do have a couple questions. One of them is, how do you determine where to target your work and your resources? Typically, can you describe for us what might trigger you in a certain place, or do you guys just kind of imagine the district in its totality, or do issues arise that trigger your attention or target? Can you just help us to get a better idea of how your work is engaged on a daily basis?
Whoever would like to answer that.
Director Simpson, members of the committee, I am Ebony Lewis, the Director of the Gender and Identity Inclusion Department. I think so. There are multiple, tiers and ways to answer that question. As departments here within the district, we serve the entire district. So a lot of times people will ask, like, oh, what school do you work at? We serve all schools, but I do think to that question, right, we have, partnerships. I know and I don't want to speak for anybody's department, but for restorative practices, they have coaches that are in certain schools. And so part of it is like we have a referral process where if there is something happening, a school can reach out. However, something like our training, that is accessible to everyone. We, have different models and methods. We try to address all the different intricacies of needs based on teachers, administrators, students. We even offer training to students, and so having those things in place. And so when things or challenges arise, we try, we try to navigate and manage those things as best as we can. But ultimately, we want to have a proactive approach. We don't want to be reactive. And so that's why things like our guidance, our Girls of Color Guide, our Gender Inclusion Guidance, all of the resources in the Equity Guidebook are so important, because it's allowing staff, students, and families to take this information in and understand how all of these pieces make us who we are as a district. And the more that we focus on those things, then we won't have to keep reacting to things when they're happening. As I mentioned, I don't just want somebody to put up a safe space poster. I want them to also go through our training. I want them to get the information so that a student doesn't come to a space they think is safe and then ultimately receive harm. And so we're, working to ensure that we can do that. And so I think the ways that we do it are all just like vastly different, hands-on approaches. If somebody calls, we show up. We have referrals. We offer different training. And so kind of doing it in all the ways, and just to make sure that, as we do it, we're educating as much as possible so that other people are equipped to do it without us having to show up.
Follow-up, Director Ferguson?
Yes, how do you interface specifically with principals? And I say that, and in saying that, I want to sort of just kind of look, preface it by saying that various different people appreciate the work at different levels, right? So as my colleague just mentioned, there is a real concern about how people are going to perceive this type of work moving into the future, because we all know why. So how do you interface with the principals and get their buy-in to what you do, and are there teeth there to make sure they buy in?
Administration.
Director Simpson, Director Ferguson, and I'll let you guys answer this a little bit later, but I did want to make sure that, when we talk about our students, we support all our students, right? And I understand the concern. Believe me, we've had those conversations internally, and we'll continue to support all students in what they need. Regardless of what we may need to change our name to, whatever the case may be, our student services will continue. In terms of principals, principals value these resources. Principals reach out. They ask, for example, if there's a need for Black and Latino male, they're not sitting here, but they're part of this work, right? They can come out and speak to a specific school based upon the need of that school, whether that's, in a middle school, elementary, or high school. And the same with the other resources here, right? So principals reach out as needed. As Ms. Lewis said, when they notice something, and they can make themselves interject themselves. I don't believe there's, going to be anybody that doesn't want help for our students. And if that's ever the case, then we'll deal with that internally. But that's not going to be acceptable. Our students need the services, and they will get those services. And I'll let you add anything to that you may need to.
Director Simpson, members of the board, Leon Gross, Director of the Department of Restorative Practices, to again support what Superintendent Galvan has said. When we're supporting schools, we're underscoring that it's invitational. And so as service leaders, as servant leaders in our district, we know that principals are the face a lot of times of those respective school communities, and they want their schools to be communities of care. And so regardless of the systems that they may have in place to support Tier 1 practices, our department is very intentional in going in and helping them understand how we can create communities of care. What are some intentional activities that build community and also honor the various perspectives that come from the communities that they're serving through shared leadership, through soliciting their voices, through allowing students to be part of the curriculum, leadership teams. And so our department is very intentional in helping them understand what kind of restorative language can be used in the communities to help promote a welcoming environment. So we're here to support all schools. We have an opportunity to work with principals in the Principal Leadership Institutes, as well as professional development days. And so our accessibility, we have an open door. And we want, again, to underscore that it's all about invitation. We're not offering an opportunity. We want an invitation, because not all opportunities are invitational. But we want to take that and we want to preface it in a way that our doors are inviting, and we are willing to celebrate who you are, where you come from, your perspective, because it's with you that we do become the cornerstone of the community. And that's what the community is looking for, is that resource that they can come to and find any and every need that they can have satisfied.
Any follow-up, Director Ferguson?
No, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any further comments by committee members? All right, seeing none, thank you again for that update from all of you, and look forward to hearing more about the work that you do. It's very important to the district. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 8 is report with possible action on Resolution 2223R-011 on gender inclusion. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would administration please present this item?
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. Tonight, I am joined by Ms. Ebony Lewis again and Sean Kane to provide us with an update to Resolution 2223R-001 on gender inclusion. Following the presentation of this information, we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Senior Director of Facilities and Maintenance Services. We're obviously going to be going through the response to Resolution 2223R-011, approved by the board on November 15, 2022. The administration is providing updates for the gender inclusive policies, gender neutral bathrooms, and district-wide events for LGBTQ+. On this slide that we have, this is kind of what we'll be discussing. Slide 3 is the slide that represents our 5 priorities for success within the district to improve district and school culture. This slide represents a strategic plan to support the success of the district. Slide 5 discusses gender-neutral bathrooms. With assigning bathrooms to be gender-neutral, it's important that school leaders engage with the Department of Gender Identity and Inclusion to determine if existing facilities can accommodate the needs required by this resolution or if renovations will be needed. This will have to be determined on a site-by-site basis after submitting a request. Once the district assessment is complete, design and construction plans will need to be generated to complete the scope of work. It's important to understand that the fiscal impact and estimated timeline for a project of this magnitude. Renovations can cost anywhere from $1,000 to $100,000, pending the requested scope, and could take 4 months of construction. Gender-neutral bathrooms are defined as bathrooms that are accessible to any student, person, regardless of their gender identity, expression, and sexual orientation. Currently, school leaders are identifying their assigned bathrooms. In addition, the STEM team, through Career Tech Ed, is working with students at Hayes School to fabricate our district-wide bathroom signs. As for accomplishments, we have received information and finalizing locations for the gender-neutral bathrooms. The sign should be ready in a couple weeks for fabrication. As for the next steps, if a school chooses to request an assessment, Department of Gender and Identity Inclusion will work with facilities and maintenance if bathrooms will need to be renovated. Lastly, once the bathroom signs are fabricated, facilities and maintenance will continue efforts in installing them throughout the district. Now, with updates for gender and identity awareness and policies, I'll turn it over to Ms. Lewis.
Director Simpson and members of the committee. I am Ebony Lewis, the Director of Gender and Identity Inclusion. And as Sean mentioned, really focusing in on this resolution and really just looking at the gender neutral bathrooms and how that process is growing, what's going on with that. And then the part that I'll talk about is just, once again, building an inclusive environment, because we don't want to have gender neutral bathrooms in spaces that aren't inclusive, because once again, that can bring forth further harm. So really looking at the Department of Gender and Identity Inclusion and our mission to serve girls of color and LGBTQ plus students, really working not just to get the gender neutral facilities, but really having that consultation process. And so as shown, there is a process, it's a 4-step process where you submit a referral. That referral does come to our department. We're then able to call, reach out to that principal, and see what level of support they need. As Sean mentioned, not every school needs the same level of support. There are some schools that have an identified location and they're ready for the sign, and so we can get them assigned. There are other schools that then will need to contact facilities and maintenance on to ensure that they get proper renovation or anything like that. And then the last piece is really focusing back on consultation around any support that is needed, any training that may be needed, how to communicate this information with parents. Once again, just thinking about the culture and climate of our nation. As we enhance this practice within our district, it's going to come with questions, and we want our leaders and we want our educators to be equipped with the information and the knowledge. And so just some additional updates in regards to the resolution that we have been working on as a department is really addressing student need and safety, dignity, and belonging, ensuring that, once again, there's that understanding and awareness, and just really building that culture internally within the school. Our awareness is built through tons of inclusive practices and education and awareness. I'll talk about that on the next slide. And then incorporating feedback from the community in our schools. And so really ensuring that we're listening to the community, we're enhancing our schools, and then once again, just equipping our educators and our leaders to be able to answer those questions as they get them. On the next slide, I'm going to just talk about some of our supports. And so one of them being our Welcoming Schools training. This is one that I wanted to highlight. And so I put an asterisk by it with some additional information. This program is offered through the Human Rights Campaign, and it's centered around bias-based bullying prevention in the nation, providing LGBTQ plus and gender inclusive professional development training and resources specifically designed for pre-K to grade 12 educators and youth. And we as a district have taken on that program, and so we have district-wide facilitators of that program, and it's a 6-module course that educators, staff, principals, leaders can go through in the district. And so we're really pushing for that that information, for that training to be something that, our district takes on and goes through, just because we know that being a welcoming school, it doesn't just talk about, facilities, but it talks about how to embrace families, how to make your schools more gender inclusive, more LGBTQ plus inclusive, supporting trans and non-binary students. It talks about bias-based bullying and how do we prevent bullying. Once thinking from that proactive lens, and then thinking about intersectionality and all the other ways that our students show up in the ways that they need to be served. So that's one of the really heavy undertakings of our department right now, is just really trying to figure out, thinking about principals and leaders, how are we getting at least one person in each school trained in this, and then the goal is to ultimately train the school. There's a part of the Welcoming Schools training that allows for the school to be trained and receive some recognition and some additional things if the entire school is trained in the Welcoming Schools curriculum. Outside of that training, we have our gender inclusion guidance, district-wide transgender awareness training that the entire district did go through, and that was last school year. We have our gender sexuality alliances. We are now at about 50 across the district. That's elementary, middle, and high school. And so those are a critical part of our schools, as it's student-led. That student voice is there, and it's really those safe spaces. Our GSA Advisor Collective that supports the advisors that are helping run GSAs, especially given, once again, the culture and climate we're in. They have a lot of questions. They need a lot of support. They're trying to support the students, firsthand, and so that's been one of those things that we've been offering that support on. We do offer student and classroom inclusion presentations, and then our safe space posters. And so finally, just to close out, just once again, thinking about what we are doing on a larger level is just really ensuring that we're not just, educating, but we're celebrating inclusivity, that our students know that they are valued. And so just sharing a highlight, on October 31st of 2024, we hosted our second annual GSA LGBTQ plus Student Leadership Summit. This was brought to us and able to happen due to the It Gets Better project. We received a grant for that, and we had 200 students from 15 high schools that came and received information. They had fun, they celebrated. We had a keynote speaker who was a non-binary actor who graduated from Milwaukee High School of the Arts. And so it was just a really great space to be in and to celebrate our students. And so that is the update and report on our resolution of gender inclusive bathrooms and gender inclusive practices within Milwaukee school districts. We are now available for any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you so much. Sometimes it's just really nice to sit back and just think about all the things that make us MPS proud. We say it, but there's meaning behind it. There are reasons for it, and this is one of them. Do any members of the public wish to make comments?
We have no speaker slips.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Yep, Director Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair Simpson. My question is so I see that we have a gender-neutral bathroom identified for each MPS facility. This is just for my own information, are these bathrooms like single-use bathrooms, or can multiple people go in at once?
Administration.
Chair Simpson, Director Ferguson, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent. So to clarify, we are working on identifying those bathrooms in every building. We're getting there. We're not quite there yet. And to the second part of your question, it varies from school to school. So some of our, as always in our schools, the challenges are, for example, some of our buildings are over 100 years old, and there's only limited bathrooms, right? So some of those spaces that we just have to identify what's best for each individual school and student. So that's part of the process that Mr. Kane was describing. And as Ebony, Ms. Lewis has said, we want to make sure that it's not just, it's available, it's welcoming. So we're identifying those spaces, and some of the schools already have them, and we'll put the sign up and make sure that those are known. But again, it's not going to be the same in every school.
Follow-up, Director Ferguson?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Nope. All right, well, thank you so much for that presentation. Really appreciate it. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on this meeting's agenda.
There being no further business before the committee, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.